Gulf Stream in the Gulf of Mexico swirls. Then it comes out and makes a giant swirl in the North Atlantic Ocean. You say, who cares? Well, this happened down in Pensacola. It just so happens there's an obvious sign of the Gulf Stream moving stuff. This is Pensacola Harbor. There's the city of Pensacola, where I lived for 30 years. There is a beach sticking way out here called Gulf Breeze. You've been there. There's another peninsula way out here where they have Fort Pickens and a beautiful beach for like 12 miles of white sand, okay? Why are these peninsulas out here anyway? What happened? What would form a long, skinny beach peninsula? Well, part of it is the waves coming in from the Gulf. That has a habit of knocking sand off and dragging it out and dropping it a certain distance out. That's another story. But it's interesting. The ships would come in the harbor and have to go over here to Pensacola. If you look at the Escambia River where it came down, this island is growing longer. In the last 150 years, it's grown 1 mile. I'll show you. You do the math, you say, hold it. This peninsula cannot be millions of years old. It can only be a few thousand years old. I think after Noah's flood, the Escambia River came straight out here, and gradually, because of the Gulf Stream, it is picking up sand over here, dropping it over here, and making this peninsula get longer. I'll show you. Before the Civil War, there were 3 forts built to protect Pensacola Harbor. There was Fort Pickens, Fort McRae, and Fort Barrancas. Now, back in those days, they wanted to protect, enemy ship comes in, they want to shoot them. But their cannons didn't go very far. They're shooting a big steel ball. Fort Pickens could only reach that far, so they could just sail around it. So Fort McRae has what's called overlapping range. Somebody can hit it. And then Fort Barrancas has another overlapping range. So they built these 3 forts to protect the harbor. They could have done it with 1 if they had cannons would shoot far enough, but they didn't. So that's what they did with 3 forts to protect the harbor. Now, the Gulf Stream is going this way, swirling clockwise north of the equator. What happens is it's picking up sand over here and dropping it over here. Sand is picked up from this side, dropped over here on this side. This peninsula is growing longer. This one's growing shorter. Fort McRae, built 140 years ago, has nearly disappeared. It's almost gone. It's washed into the Gulf. Fort Pickens is now a mile away from the water. That peninsula has grown a full mile just in 140 years since the Civil War. The harbor has shifted over about a mile. Why? Because of the Gulf Stream. Why is there a Gulf Stream? Because the world is spinning. If the world were not spinning, there would not be a Gulf Stream current. Here is the peninsula. There is Fort Pickens, right there, today. Why is it a mile away from the water? Wouldn't it be smart if your cannon can only shoot about a mile anyway? Wouldn't it be smart to build as close as you could to the beach?